that. All right. So I actually did prepare a little presentation just so we can stay on sort of an agenda and move through it as smoothly and efficiently as possible. And I do have a time for questions and answers. So I do have this open on my phone as well. So if you type something in the chat or if you raise your hand, I should be able to see it. But if I don't react quickly, it's because I just didn't see your hand raised. And I do have a time for question and answers. So hopefully that'll be a good backup plan. But let me just share my screen and run this PowerPoint really quickly here. So first of all, just thank you so much for taking time to attend here live. These types of meetings save me hours in emails. So we can knock off a whole lot of items really quickly by conversation that would take back and forth by email. So I really appreciate it. So you are part of the inaugural first offering of the Master of Science in Translational Health Science program at the University of Windsor. I've been working on developing this program for the last 2 years nearly now, and it was approved back in December, and we're so excited to see our first group of students. The students started May 9th, and they're in class right now, and we are really excited about the bunch of students we had. We had about 50 applications, which was amazing to us because the program, you know, we didn't even get to advertise it for the first time until January 11th, and the deadline was April 1st. So in 3 months, we got, you know, almost 50 applications, and we accepted what we think were the top 23 applications. So we have a really excellent cohort. They're excited to be in the program. We're excited to have them. And this program wouldn't function, of course, without the clinicians. So without your projects, we couldn't accept students. And so we're really happy to be collaborating with you and for your participation in this. So just a few administrative issues to take care of. I have 8 items on the agenda here, but the first 3 will go really quickly. But first off, my contact information. Obviously, email is a great way to get a hold of me, mcrozier@uwindsor.ca. I typically respond immediately, even if it's at 3 in the morning, because I just can't stand having emails hanging over my head. I have about 900 students this semester, and so I'm used to getting emails, you know, 3 and 4 in the morning every day of the week. That being said, definitely within the first 24 hours, I most certainly will respond to your emails. But if you would like to reach out to me via text message or call me, that's my personal cell phone number. If you want to write it down or take a screenshot, you can call me anytime. And if I don't answer, it's most likely because I'm on another call or have, for whatever reason, I just didn't have my volume turned on, and I will respond immediately. But email is very simple, and it's great for booking meetings like Teams or Zoom meetings. So I'll probably stick with email for the most part. But I do have what I call my bookings page. So there's a QR code here. If you have a mobile device, you could scan that code and maybe just bookmark the page. Or if you are really interested in that, I can also just email you the link to my bookings page. But I'm going to jump over there and show you what that looks like really quickly. I'll just hold on in case you're scanning that code. I can't actually see you all. So let me just jump over to show you what that looks like really quickly. Here it is. This is my bookings page, and this bookings page is exclusively for you, VIP members. This is for clinicians only that are part of this program. And if you scroll down, you can pick any date on the calendar. And if you see the date is kind of faint, that's because there's no available appointments on that date. So it'll just say there's no availability. But any of the darker fonted colors here, you can click on any of them and you'll see times appear. And the times are different depending on the date. But some dates have lots of options, some dates have less because people have already booked or because you know, I'm teaching a class or something and I'm not available. But you just click on any of the dates, you pick the time you want to meet with me, and just put your name and email address. That's all it needs. If you do want to provide additional information, like I need to talk about this issue that I might need some prep time for, just let me know, but just hit book. It will automatically create a Teams meeting. And I'll be notified by email. It'll appear on my calendar. You'll be notified by email, and you can add that to your calendar. But that's a great way to set up a one-on-one meeting with me. Or if you want, along with your co-principal investigator on the project, you could book a time with me. Each time will allow 3 people at that time. So if you want to bring your team, they can also book at the same time if you wish. All right, jumping back to this. So that's my bookings page. Going back to the agenda, similar issue. You don't have to answer me, but what is the best way to contact you? Here's a list of all of the clinicians. I kind of have them crammed here, but you can scroll down. I can zoom in on this a little bit for you. I'll have to move the list up here in a moment, but look for your name and your email address. The only reason I brought this up is that I've sent out a number of emails that have bounced back to me because the email address no longer works, or these are the email addresses that were given to me by you on your project descriptions, and some of them had typos, or some of them are defunct email addresses. So just do a quick check and make sure I have your email address correct, or it's the best one. That's what I will be using going forward, unless you tell me otherwise. And so if there's any errors or you want to change how I contact you, just send me an email and let me know, because obviously communication is incredibly important in anything, certainly in this. So on the issue of communication, just kind of the final administrative issue, I do want to say one or two things about that. And I've been teaching for 18 years at Wayne State University and the last 13 years concurrently at the University of Windsor. And the first day of class, I tell the students there's two issues that are critical to success in a class like this. And one of them is expectations, or false expectations, or assumptions. Students will come into class with all sorts of assumptions. I'll have students that will miss a final exam. And then I say, where were you? And they say, oh, I thought it was optional. So why would you think that? Just these assumptions that come up. Well, my math professor, it was optional. So I don't want that to be an issue. But communication is the other issue. I anticipate this is our first year with the program. The most important determining factor of the success of this program is going to be the quality of communication between all the participants. So the participants, there's three major groups of participants. There's you, the clinicians, whether a principal investigator or co-principal investigator. There's me as a program coordinator, and there's the students. And so the take-home message is communication matters. And I'm learning that because I sent out that email. I sent out an email a week ago on Thursday that had those 4 hyperlinks. It took me like 5 hours to write that email, literally 5 hours, because I had to create a YouTube video that was going to be linked in the email, but the email itself had to show in the video. So it took me hours to edit this video, and then I created these hyperlinks. And I was just trying to make a really clean, 4 action item type of email. But what I realized, I send that out, and then, a week later, there's been only 1 or 2 people responded. So there's 30 clinicians or more, and there's 23 students. So for example, if we try to plan an event like, could we meet on this day and time? You can imagine how hard it is to coordinate one mutually convenient time for such busy people. It's very difficult. So I think the simplest solution would be just to set up right into our calendars a fixed date or time that we have some type of meeting like this, not too frequently, but just regularly. So my biggest concern right now in this meeting is our communication between you and I. And what I would like to do in July or August and then going forward is just have once a month, or once every 6 weeks, or once every 2 months. I don't care how frequent, but let's say once a month, for example, the last Friday of the month or the first Monday of the month, we have a Teams meeting with all the clinicians and me. Whether it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes, that's fine. But just a chance to touch base, get clarification. I can update you where the students are at. You can let me know if there's any issues or concerns or anything you need clarification on. And it may be that one clinician raised a question that you never thought of, and vice versa. But if we just have a once a meeting, almost like a committee meeting, once a month, and I'm not setting the date right now, but I just want to say that that is something I would like to set up. So if it's something you want to reflect on, when you could slot that into your incredibly full schedules, I think that would save us, hundreds of back and forth emails if we had such a meeting. Second issue is obviously communication between you and the students. That is something, once you're aligned with the student, I'm going to talk about how that will happen in a moment. Once you're aligned with the student, you can kind of work that out. But in a similar sense, I think it would save a lot of grief and a lot of trouble and make things run smoothly if you set up a once a week meeting with the student, just to say, what have you been doing this week, or what do you plan to do next week? I've done a number of master's degrees, and some of them have been similar to this. And one of the problems I found with some of my classmates, they've experienced, and I've experienced it too, to some degree, especially with clinical or research-based projects, is it's very easy to slip through the cracks, just to disappear for a month. There's just no, because of whatever reason, there's no communication, and all of a sudden you're in a hole, and it's something that could have been resolved with just, if I had done a better job as a student communicating to my investigator and vice versa. So Carolyn Ham was on the last meeting, and she said, it's good just to slot this on your calendar, maybe a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, or in person, depending on your preference, once you've met with the student, starting in September, just to set up a weekly meeting. Now, many of you, your projects, there's you and there's 2 other principal investigators. So you might be the co-PI or principal investigator, but there's 3 of you. I just want to make sure that my students are meeting with at least one of you somehow on a weekly basis. So if you want to alternate between you and your collaborators and say, okay, I'll meet with a student on week 1 of the month, you meet with them on week 2, you meet with them week 3. So you're actually only meeting with them once a month, but the student is meeting with someone that they can report to and get feedback from approximately once a week or once every other week. Sometimes meetings will be canceled, that's fine, but that's the idea. The other form of communication is obviously between me and the students, and there's going to be a lot of that. I meet with the students 3 times a week, and I'm going to be meeting with them once a week, specifically, exclusively to talk about their progress on your project. So if they have any issues they want to raise to me, or they need clarification, they need some suggestions, they're going to be presenting to all of their classmates what they've been doing, and their classmates are going to be interacting with them. So they're going to get lots of feedback through this, but I just want you to know that that will be happening. So in short, this course, where they're with you, is a 9-credit course. That means they're with you in some sense for 9 hours a week. 6 hours a week, they're working on the project, whether in the clinic on site or analyzing data at home, whatever it is, they're working on the project 6 hours a week. 1 hour a week, that's the 7th hour, they're meeting with you or one of the co-PIs. And the 8th and 9th hour, they're with me, reporting and getting feedback on what they've been doing. That makes up the nine hours. All right, I'm sure you'll have some questions about that we'll come back to. So just give an update on the current status of the program. Currently, the students are in the first semester. It's 3 semesters. And just to go through this very quickly, they're currently taking a professional development seminar with me once a week. They're learning soft skills, how to write a resume or a CV, interview skills, professionalism, networking, team building, all these types of soft skills, and some software skills as well that I'm training them in. They are taking a cancer cell biology class with Dr. Lisa Porter in Cavallo MedBed, and they'll follow that up in the fall with more applied fundamentals of oncology. I know not all the projects are cancer related, but we started building this program around the faculty that we had at the time and what they're experts in. And so it is a little cancer heavier centric, but over the course of the next few years, we hope to broaden the curriculum to bring in other specialty areas in terms of class options and electives. They are taking, half of the cohort is taking a research methods course right now. They're learning about qualitative and quantitative research, clinical research methodologies, and the other half of the class will take this in the fall. So they will all get this training either now or in the fall. And they're all taking experiential learning placement with me, which runs all year long. So this is really the course that you and I are kind of overseeing them in collectively. But in the summer, I take on all of that work until they get established in their project. So what we're doing right now during the summer is all of the onboarding administrative stuff to get the student ready so they can work with you. So they have to complete their confirmation forms to the hospital. They have to go through a bunch of tests, like their 2-step TB skin tests, their serology reports. No problem, Sahar. Yeah, no problem. Take your time. Their police clearance letters and all these administrative things, just so they can actually work in the hospital. And then there's some other training that I'm putting them through in the class. But just to give you some specifics, the forms, confirmation forms, and all of the documents, the paperwork that gets them ready for their first day of placement, This is all being taken care of by Connie Tamalti, who onboards volunteers, and in conjunction with the Office of Research as well. So this stuff is currently being taken care of. They're working on it during the summer. I have asked the students to do their two-step TB skin test and their serology reports, confirming immunity, vaccination status, and so on. I've given them until the end of June to complete these. So some of these take 3 or 4 weeks. So they've already started doing this now, and hopefully they'll all be done by the end of June. I've also asked them to start their police clearance letters now, and I've given them until the end of June to try to complete this as well. Some might take a little longer because they're from other cities, but hopefully by July, mid-July, they'll be done with these. The university has workplace safety board letters, and I'm meeting with the safety office to get this started now, and they will finish this by the end of the summer for sure. Some other training that we're giving them, I've been working with the Research Ethics Board at the university and the Research Ethics Board at the Office of Research at the hospital, and we have put together a course stream that involves about 32 modules from the city program from Network of Networks. So they're getting training in biomedical research ethics and data management collection, privacy, informed consent, all the ethical training around clinical research involving humans they will get. And I've ensured that they are doing all the required courses to work at Windsor Regional Hospital. If you're coming from another institute and you want to look at the list of training, or you think there are things that need to be added, we are going to be having a meeting with all the stakeholders that are involved to see if we need to make any modifications to the stream. But right now it's very extensive. So I think we probably will cover all grounds needed to work in your clinical projects. They are also have the TCBS 2 core tutorial, the newest version from 2022. That is due by June 30th from our students. So they will all be certified from TCPS 2 core tutorial. In the month of July, I have the university librarian who's going to come and train them in the importance of and development of data management toolkits. And then we'll have someone from WeSpark who's going to come train them in RegCap. So during the month of July, for 4 weeks, they're going to be getting an introduction to RegCap and then some of the elementary interface and use of RegCap during the summer. So by the time they start their project, they are familiar, they have accounts, they know how to move data in, they know how to manipulate it. And during the fall, we will continue to train them and to address any questions or needs they might have if you want to use the research data capture software for your project. So that brings me to some important dates. So I've given the student a list of all the projects that you have provided. And thank you again. We received 21 projects from you. Now, some of the projects you specified saying, I only need 1 student, but some of the projects you said I could use 2 or I could use more. It turns out if I look at all the projects, and I do have a nice single document that lists all 21 projects, and I can send this PDF to you. I think I already sent it out, but if you need it, just let me know. And you can jump into any of these projects and see who the principal investigator is and who the co-PIs are for all 21 projects. But if I do the math, you know, some of these projects could use more than 1 student. If you scroll through, if I click on any of these, so this one just needs 1 student, but some of them say 2 or 3. It turns out that we have about 28 spots available for our students. And we only have 23 students. So some of them, I know the clinician said, hey, I can take 2 students. I don't really need 2 students. So we may have to come back if you did ask for 3. We might not be able to give you, 2 or 3 for all the projects, but we definitely have 1 student for every project and probably 2 students for several projects. But what I've done is I've sent this to the students and I've asked them.
Sorry, could I ask you a question? Sorry to interrupt. Hi, how are you?
Well, how are you? Go ahead. Yeah.
So when you said 23 students that you have, those are 23 students that have accepted the offer for the master's program or 23 applicants?
Okay, I'll back up. Great question. The program started May 9th, so we have 23 students enrolled, actively taking classes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, they probably applied to many programs.
Yeah, we had 50 applicants to the program.
Oh.
And we've rejected 27 or 25,
Great.
27. Yeah, we took the 23 best, we thought were best students. I'm really excited about our cohort. I couldn't be more happy. We have a really, and which was amazing because we only advertised January 11th for the first time in the Daily News, the Windsor Mail or news site. So to get 50 applicants in 3 months, we're just thrilled. So at first we were like, we had like 15 projects. We only had like 4 applicants. So I was asking for more projects, and all of a sudden we have more projects. And I was asking, or students, I was asking for, well, can you take on 2 or 3 students? But this is where we're at. We have 21 projects. We have 23 students. And some of these projects have asked for 2 students. So I think we'll be able to give everyone a student, a good student. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah. No problem. So what I've done is I've sent the list to the students, and they are reading the descriptions that you provided and kind of ranking them. Like this would be, if I could choose one of these, this would be my first, second, third, fourth, fifth choice, whatever, top 10 choices. And I've explained to students, listen, we're going to do our best in collaboration with the clinicians to align you with a project that you prefer to be on. But ultimately, there's 21 projects, there's 21 students, 23 students. We're going to have to make some executive decisions along the way and say, okay, you're doing this project, whether it was in their top 2 choices or not. It's going to be very difficult, obviously, to give everyone their top choice, but never know, it might work out. But what I like to do, just explain the process of that, is I've asked them, so I'm creating a REDCap survey where they rank all the projects according to preference. I'm going to download that data and just look at it and see how many we can accommodate exactly how they want. But I've asked them to submit that to me by June 21st. And then I would like to have a social mixer event, like a meet and greet for the students to meet all of you. So I did send out a find time poll in my email a week ago yesterday, so May 26th. Some of you already responded, but I don't know if I have that. So in the email, it would have been at the bottom of that email. I think I sent the email May 26th around 4 in the afternoon or so. Actually, I have it right here. Just a PDF of it. So yeah, it was 4:29 p.m. But at the bottom of the email, you would have seen something like this. If you didn't respond, it's a find time poll, and the poll looks like this. So all I did was I just gave Monday, if you look on the left-hand side, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I just gave every day of the week, and I put 3 times every day, like 12 p.m., 5 p.m., or 7 p.m., and you can vote. So if you scroll across, you find your name, you go down and you say, okay, Monday, June 27th, I can't. You can say no to 12 p.m., yes to 5 p.m., or prefer to 7 p.m. All I ask with this, if you haven't already filled out, is that if you're available, please say yes. Even if it's not your preferred time, just say yes. And if you prefer the time, then say prefer. If you absolutely cannot attend the time, then say no. The reason being is I have to find one mutually convenient time that works for all 55 people involved, which is going to be impossible. And some people go down the list. I'll pick on Lisa because she's my former supervisor. Lisa went down the list and just said no, 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 and then picked her favorite time at the bottom. So what that means is that I can't book it for any of the dates except her favorite time because she said no to everything. Well, obviously I'm not going to do that. I can't make it work for everybody, but I'll do my best to pick the most popular time and just make an executive decision. That's when we're going to have the event. And if you can make it, great. If you can't, I understand. We can find other ways for you to meet the students.
So, sorry to interrupt. I actually have another meeting I need to jump on to, but thank you so much for all this incredible work.
No problem.
There's no doubt that this is an enormous task. So really appreciate you doing all this. And I will look at those emails a little more carefully and try and fill out that information for you.
No problem. And I'll send you the link to this video and you can watch the last, 5 minutes that are left. There's only a couple slides left which have some action items. That'd be great. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. No problem. Yeah, so if you're able to complete that poll, I appreciate it if you haven't already. And again, this is last week of June, early July. I want to have it at the hospital, so most of you are already there. You don't have to go anywhere. However, the hospital, I've talked to the hospital and said we can't host an event with COVID restrictions right now. So I'll either do it really near the hospital or we'll have to do it on site at the university. And if you can't make it, understand. But the reason for this is that now that the students have looked at all of your projects, they might have some questions like, what will my tasks be, or could you clarify that? And after meeting with you and conversing, it also gives you a chance, if there's any input you want to give to me, say, listen, I was talking to so-and-so, they're interested in my project, I think they're a really good fit. And then we can make that happen, or do our best to make that happen. There's already been students come to me and say, listen, can you ask Dr. So-and-so, I really like their project and I have some experience in this area. So the mixer event would be a great opportunity to form those kind of connections. So after they meet with you and discuss your projects at this mixer event, then we can say, okay, now let's explicitly align a student with your project. And I want to start doing that mid-July, so that you already know by August, I'm going to have this student starting with me the beginning of September. So one question I did put here is, does your project need, or does it already have REB clearance? The reason I ask this is some of the projects we've received are existing projects they've already started, and the clinician doesn't have a student, or they have a SWARP student or something. And in that case, we can just add our student onto the REB clearance form. Others, the projects are going to start in September and the REB has already been written, and others, the REB hasn't been written yet. The reason I bring this up is that our students could help you with that. Potentially that could be the start of their project, is helping you with writing the REB clearance for your project. And obviously their name would go on it. For others, you may want to do that now so that when September comes around, you already have clearance for the project. And what you would have to do in that case is simply say, a master student to be named. And then I've talked to the REB offices and they can simply then add the specific student's name once the project starts, once you find out who's aligned with you. REB does not meet for the hospital in July, just a heads up. And they usually meet the middle of the month, and it takes a couple of weeks for the decision. So either you would want to have REB clearance kind of filled out now for mid-June to get approved by the end of June, or you'd want to start doing that so that you're approved, you can submit it by mid-August to have it approved by the end of August. We would like our students to start with you in September. Again, if that doesn't work out, we can interact on this and work on this. But that's the goal, is that they'd be able to start working with you on the project in September.
Martin, sorry, one question to clarify the mixer.
Yes.
How long do you expect the mixer to go on for?
I don't have a set time, but I was thinking at most like an hour.
Okay.
Even if it's something you dropped into and left, what I plan to do is going to be fairly informal, but what I would plan to do is just pause at some time, either at the beginning or the midpoint or the end, whichever works out, depending on people's attendance, and just stop and say, here are our clinicians, and just run down the list of here they are. And because the students will already know your project's numbers by name and recognize your names. And what I might do is just set up little different areas in the room, depending on the space we get, different tables where maybe you could sit and students could approach you if they're interested in your project and so on.
Like
and
a
also,
job fair.
Like a job fair, yeah, really informal, but a little bit of structure. And maybe I'll do it right at the midpoint in case people have to leave halfway through or can only join halfway through, something in the middle, and just introduce you to the students really quickly and them to you. And there are some areas, like I'm friends with the owner of Penalty Box, so I was thinking maybe Penalty Box is really close to the hospital, but we also have spaces on the university campus that are bigger spaces that are kind of, we could have private access to, and it might be a little better. The hospital does have space, but again, we can't bring students there because of COVID restrictions. So it'll have to be off-site, away from the hospital. All right, just a couple more points really quickly, and then I'll end this. Some questions that have been asked this week by other clinicians that you may have, or in case you don't, you might appreciate the answers. One was, does my project have to start and end within the time period I have the student, that is from September to April? The answer is no. Some of the projects, like I mentioned, began months ago or even more than a year ago. In fact, some of the projects already have medical students or SWARP students on them. In that case, our student, the MSTHS student, would simply join the project kind of midstream. They join in September and continue on through April, and then graduate, right? Another possibility is that some of these projects are going to start now in September, but they might take more than 8 months. They might take a year. They might take a year and a half or 2 years. And so our student would graduate next May, but you could take on another master's student the following year just to pick up where they left off and carry the project forward toward completion. So obviously clinical research doesn't run on a timeline that you get to set like during semesters. So we anticipate there'll be some projects that are already active or carry over past the end. Of course, if our student's working out really well for you, you may want to hire them on as a research assistant after they graduate to finish up the project, for example, for a few months or whatever it might be. Another question, do I have to pay or have funding for my student? And the answer is no. This is a free to use service. The experience that they're going to get is a substantial benefit to them. Many of our students are applying for medical school, and having this on their CV is going to be a tremendous benefit to them. And so we're just excited to have projects. They're going to benefit regardless of where they go on with their professional academic career or into healthcare or government work. So no, you're not expected to provide funding for our students. That being said, and just for full transparency, if you have a current grant from which you can provide support, please let us know. I happen to be former classmates with someone that oversees the funding from MyTax. And I know MyTax has a bunch of complicated different ways of applying for grants, but they also have some really simple, small, but amazing matching grants. So just to give you an example of this, and again, there's no pressure or expectation here, but if you have a grant and you had, just say you had $5,000 that could be put toward a student, MyTax will match that $5,000, generating $10,000, give $7,500 to the student, and the remaining $2,500 would then go into a bank account that we could use to pay for certain research expenses. So even though you gave $5,000, there would actually be a pool of $2,500 that could be used for expenses, and the student would be compensated very nicely in that. So and there's other versions of that, but the application form is incredibly simple. This is for the BSI version of the grant. It's a Business Strategic Innovation Grant. The actual form is only like 3 pages, and our student could actually completely fill it out for you. There'd be very little you would have to do, so long as you have, a grant or funds to provide toward that. That's just one example. Again, no pressure, but it exists, and if you'd want help with that, we could have your student do all the heavy lifting on that, and it would benefit everyone. Our students the initial tuition for this program was $20,000. We've managed to get it cut in half. Our students are paying $10,550 to take this program. And the department, biomedical science department at the university, has taken on the other half of those costs with the hopes that the province will provide financial funding. The province is very busy with the election right now, but we anticipate they are going to fund this program. So we cut tuition in half for our students, but they are paying about $10,000. And so any support, I'm sure they'd be delighted. They're not allowed to work. They don't have GA positions or anything like that, so they're paying out of pocket for this program. Again, I just want you to know about that. It's no pressure whatsoever. Also, on the topic of funding or grants, perhaps you don't have a grant, or you have a grant, but you'd like to apply for more grants for other things like NSERC or CIHR or WeSpark Ignite or Discovery grants. Well, that'd be a great experience for our student, is to help you write a grant application. Even though they're not going to get any funding, if you get a successful grant application, you could have funding perhaps for a new project or continue a project next year. Maybe you want to take on another one of our students and have funding for them. Or perhaps you successfully apply for a grant, you get funding, and you want to keep our student after they graduate. They're experienced, they know your project, you know them, and you've enjoyed working with them. Then you have a grant, perhaps you could hire them as an RA or something, a research assistant. These are just ideas I'm just throwing out there, but there is no requirement or expectation for payment or funding for our students here.
So Martin,
And what do you think is an appropriate, oh, sorry, go on, Sahar.
No, go on.
What do you think is an appropriate amount to pay them if we wanted to pay them out of pocket?
Oh, that'd be completely up to you. I know with That's a great question. I can check with what students normally get, grad students normally get with GA ships in terms of just the responsibilities, the hours they work, because I know their hours. I can double check what the current one is. All I know that is with the MyTax, they do have baselines. So for example, the BSI, you could either put 5,000 or 7,500. They have, I'm not sure why they have those rigid numbers, but those are the two options. If you put 5,000 to the student, they would match 5,000, generating 10,000. Or if you put 7,500, they would match 7,500, generating 15,000. 10,000 would go to the student. The remaining 5,000 would go into a bank account with the university, from which we could use for paying for research expenses. But I wouldn't feel, you would know the size of your grant, how many students you are paying currently. I would leave that entirely up to you. That being said, if we can set up a once a month meeting with the other clinicians, you will have an amazing pool of experienced researchers from both faculty and healthcare. People like Lisa Porter, she oversees, when I was in her lab, there was 30 grad students, so she would know exactly what she would pay a grad student. And Carolyn Ham, she's taken on lots of students, so she might be able to give you some advice on that. Sorry, I can't answer explicitly. I don't know.
No, that's perfect. I'll reach out to them. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Martin, if we anticipate, because with the time that you're saying 9 hours per week, right? So our project may not necessarily require that amount of time, right?
Right.
So I was just wondering, and like for instance, my project is probably something that's going to take longer because just the patient population that we're accruing is not going to come as fast, right? But from the student's perspective, and especially if they're applying for medical school or whatever, there's probably other smaller projects that they can do potentially concurrently that they could get published within like 7-8 months. That could be much more realistic to get on their CV, whereas you might have a higher impact project that might take longer. So I'm just wondering, is there the scope for that, like if the time allows for that in their primary project, or how does it look at that?
Yes, this is my next frequently asked question, actually. I'm glad you brought it up. It's perfect timing. So does my student have to work on only one project or just with me? And these are the types of forms of that question I received. So obviously we want the student to have a project they're working on and a partnership, a collaboration with one of the clinicians who's kind of overseeing them. We want that. That being said, if there are beneficial skills the student could learn from periodically assisting with another project, we're really open to that. In fact, one of the clinicians who's asked for 2 students has 2 projects. And for example, I said, feel free at any time to say, take both of the students, student A and B, who are working on project A and B, and take both students, put both students on project A for a little bit of time because project B is on pause right now, or there's just a time issue where project A is time sensitive or there's nothing to do right now for project B, and you can flip them both over to project B at some point. Another example, different scenario, is where a clinician has a main project, but they have a previous project that is in the stage of writing the manuscript. And I said, well, feel free to take our student and pull them out and say, maybe assign them a project like, could you write up the methods part of my paper? Could you work on the bibliography or something for my paper? That's all, it's all benefit for them. This is all about building their professional portfolio. So over the course of the year, we've given them all what are called WordPress accounts, where they're building an electronic or digital professional portfolio that has all different tabs in it, where they're adding artifacts. Any experience they can put on their CV is just going to be above and beyond. I have so many classmates over the years who have wanted to fill a gap year between undergraduate and med school, and they've gone on to do, say, an MBA or something, just because it's a one-year program. But it's not clinically relevant to what they want to do at all. But all of this is clinically relevant. And so even if at some point you might say to your student, my project is kind of, there's nothing to do right now. It could be that another clinician would say, I could use your student for a few weeks. We're okay with that. It doesn't have, as long as we consider things like REB clearance and making sure we're not violating anything there. There's a lot of flexibility here, and we're going to find all of that out this year. This is our first year, so we're going to experiment a little bit with it, but don't hesitate to to ask or to feel constrained that I have to come up with 6 hours a week of work every week. The 9-hour breakdown, just to reiterate, is we want them to be working on the project for about 6 hours a week, a 1 hour a week meeting with you or one of the other supervisors, and 2 hours are with me just reporting and presenting what they've been doing and getting feedback. So I hope that helps answer your question. Okay, and similar, what are the time commitments from you? Well, there's several commitments that are to be expected, obviously, to get things up and running, but once a student starts a project, it should be pretty consistent. Obviously, just to reiterate, the initial commitments, that one mixer event, that social event I'd like to have, maybe we have a couple in the summer, but I'd like to have one at least to make sure that you all get to meet each other. Once a month or once every 6 weeks, whatever works, I would love to meet with all of you virtually, just so we can touch base and make sure everything's on track. If you're having any problems with a student, I want to know about it so I can quickly nip that in the bud and just take care of it. So I don't want you to have any frustrations. I don't expect any, but I just don't want you to have any frustrations with a student. If there's an issue, they're not showing up at time or whatever, I'm going to nip that in the bud right away. But I don't anticipate anything like that. We have a really good bunch. But also just for suggestions and feedback, because we're going to have to run this every year, I would like to make it as productive as possible for you. And then again, once a week meeting with the student, whether it's you or your co-PI, or maybe you have a med student underneath you that could meet with them, you can kind of arrange that once they get started. What resources are available for me to ensure my projects meet the REB clearance? Once we start meeting as a group, say in July or August, if we can start having our monthly meetings, I'm quite connected with the REB at University of Windsor, and I know the people in the Office of Research at the hospital. I would invite them to one of those meetings to answer any and all questions you have. So if you have any REB related questions, I'm the program coordinator, so I am happy to be a liaison to connect people to people. I want to make sure you have all the resources you need. You reach out to me, I reach out to the right people, and I organize, make sure that they're there to answer your questions. I'm not an expert in everything. I'm a molecular biologist, but I found myself, I'm teaching professional development skills right now. Like, who am I to teach that? But, you know, I'm kind of a fill gap person that makes sure if something's needed, I'll jump in there and try to make sure that is taken care of. All right, so that brings me to basically the last section, question and answer. You've been asking questions as we've gone along. So what I'll do is I'll just go to the next slide and then come back to question and answer. So what I would like in terms of wrapping up is just ask that you send me your contact information if and only if you prefer a different form of contact besides email. If the email address is correct, we're all set. If you wish to speak with me or meet with me, you can just go to my bookings page. There's a QR code, and you can book an appointment with me anytime that's on that calendar, and we can meet via Teams at your convenience. Please complete the find time poll to set a date for the mixer event. Ultimately, I'm just going to have to pick one of those dates and let you know about it. And finally, if you have any unique onboarding requirements, and by that I mean if your laboratory or your research project requires biosafety level 4 because you have radioactive material or something that most volunteers don't need certification for, please let me know so I can get that taken care of in June and July so they're ready to start your project. I'm just going to put the list of all the requirements again here. Just jump through this. These are the list of requirements that we will be completing during the summer. If there's anything not on this list that you need, just let me know. All right, that's it for me. Any questions?
So, you know, in terms of our project overview, I think I only actually provided a very short kind of summary, kind of draft thing for that. And is it possible to kind of elaborate on that and send it to the students ahead of the mixer, or to update anything in that? Because, you know, like by the time, you know, that project is not even REB cleared, and at the time when I sent you the email, it was just an idea that was forming. So since then I've done a lot more research, you know, kind of defined it a lot more. So I don't know whether we can actually update some of that information just for the students to have.
Absolutely. So I just took what was sent to me in those simple forms, and I just put it all into one document and sent it to the students. But that would be, yeah, it'd be very helpful because I'm giving them the next 3 weeks to kind of read over what I did receive and get a sense of what the project is. So obviously the description is going to be generally pretty accurate. But yeah, if you want to provide more detail, send that to me at your convenience. I'll pass it on to the students before the mixer.
Will you send us their CVs right before the mixer just to put it fresh in our minds when we meet them?
Yeah, great idea. So they're working on the resumes right now. They're on Wednesday next week. I've asked them to upload their resumes to or CVs to the WordPress and send me the link to their portfolios. They're starting to just kind of create the framework for the professional portfolios and add some artifacts that they have. So they won't be very developed, but that's what they're doing over the course of the years, developing those. But yeah, once they have all of their CVs uploaded and they send me the links, I can download those all and put them into one document and maybe send a PDF to all of you before the mixer event saying, here's a list of all of our students in alphabetical order and their CVs are attached. Great idea.
And in their CV or somewhere in that document, does it have their long-term goals, like whether they want to go to med school or whatever, what they envision?
Yeah, you know, Carolyn raised this question. I was talking to Carolyn yesterday. We went out, a few of us went out for a little, we have a once a month meeting that we call it We Spark After Dark, where we go out and just chat and have a drink and a snack. So she was saying, what do these students want to do? I'd like to know that. So I think that would be something I should ask them to include in their CV, or definitely a question that would be worth asking at the mixer event. Hey, what are your goals? Do you want to go to med school, or are you looking to get into work in a healthcare institution? You're looking for an industry job? These types of things. Absolutely.
There's a lot of competition, I would think, for medical school. So maybe people are a little shy to be so upfront about it. But, from our point of view, like, I think it's totally cool if people are upfront about medical school. There's nothing to be shy about it. And so if they write it in there, even if it's like a blurb at the beginning of their CV, then it's attached to their CV. So when we're reading their CV, we can sort of identify if we have any common themes, and maybe we can pick out the students that think would mesh well with our project.
Yeah, and that's kind of feedback I'd love for you after the mixer event, so like I say, they tell me their preference before the mixer. You meet with them if they want to make any changes in their decisions after meeting you and understand the project better, and also your feedback coming back to me. Then we can align the students by mid-July or late July, sometime before August. But yes, so I'll mention that specifically to them this week because I see them lots. I'll ask them to include a statement about their career path or goals. I know 3 of them just wrote their MCATs, so there's a few anyway that are going that way.
I guess the score of the MCAT will determine what the next steps.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it's crazy in Ontario. I think like 8% success rate in applying for med school in Ontario the last few years. So the average number of cycles is 3 cycles application. So this program is kind of ideally situated as a gap year filler. But I know we had a couple students who were applying who got accepted and didn't accept our letter because they went to med school. But I don't think they're all planning to go to med school. Some of them are. Yeah.
And if we could, at the mixer, I know small detail, but like these sort of big name tags, with our, I don't know, our specialty or whatever, hometown or something like that, we could sort of see it from afar. Because I think sometimes, you may only end up speaking to like 4 people, and the person that you were actually targeting is across the room, and you didn't really get to introduce them, and you didn't see their name tag. So maybe something like that, just to make it easier to just go up to someone and say something.
Great idea. Yeah. So I had them. We made name tags for all of them for the program because every class we have guest lecturers coming in, and I just want them to be able to call them by name. So we have it for all the students already, but we need to make them for clinicians. We'll put them on some nice neck chains.
If you could dispel a myth for me.
Okay.
There's a lot of like physician mom groups, like Facebook groups or whatever. And a lot of stories get shared, and you know, this like people share. Like I read 100 stories a day, let's say, from other physician women or physician moms, and a couple of stories were involving how students were calling the doctor by the first name, and it hit the physician, it hit them the wrong way because, you know, we're so sort of we're so, you know, sort of used to identifying like gender differences, where in a group email they will call the male physician by Dr. Smith and the female physician by their first name. So we're all sort of hyper aware of this kind of misconstrued thing about respect towards male doctors and not female doctors. But one of the people who are involved in graduate school mentioned that in graduate school, it's very common to call each other by first name and not to say Dr. Crozier, or, you know, not to say whatever. And so I just wanted to clarify so that no one is hit the wrong way, you know, or no one takes it as an insult that we're called by first name. Maybe you could sort of set the precedent that either we're all going to call each other by first name, or that, you know, the physicians sort of, you know, prefer to be called Dr. blah, blah, blah.
Excellent. Yeah. So there is a part of the professional development seminar that I'm teaching as a molecular biologist, is one of the courses we're going to run is a course in professionalism. We're dealing with some really practical stuff too. We have local fashion experts that are going to come in and give lectures on professional attire and
Perfect.
things like that. So,
I have to say, the medical students that are in my office, I cannot believe what they are wearing with the yoga pants and these cut off shorts almost. Like, I don't even understand, like nothing professional whatsoever. It's totally so. I would prefer they wear scrubs. I mean, at the very least, wear scrubs. Don't wear these kind of things. And I don't know why it matters, but I just feel like they are a representation of me to my patients, and therefore I would want them to just put a little bit of effort into how they dress. Of course, it doesn't change how they deliver healthcare, and it does not change their intelligence or anything like that. But it is a service. We are providing a service, and everything matters, you know, in that sort of in that interaction. So that if you can get bonus points by dressing up for your patient, I'm all for it. So again, similarly, obviously for a master's student, doesn't matter because they're not necessarily, well, actually, maybe a lot of them will be interacting with patients. So this is another thing that, you know, is interesting. Sorry to cut you off. It's just,
no, I agree 100%.
Talk about these things.
We've got the right person for this in terms of who's coming in to teach it. They're very passionate about professionalism and how you present yourself and first impressions and things like this. What I'll probably do in terms of your first part of your question is we will set a standard for before the meet and greet that we refer to the professionals as by their titles, doctor, and that after the students are assigned to a clinician, once you have met and started working on the project, that is a conversation you can have as to how you prefer to be addressed individually within your small project. But in a professional setting, we use professional titles. Of course, as program coordinator, like I went out for lunch with all the students yesterday just to sit down and get to know where they're from and their background and know about their families and their siblings and how they got here. So I'm getting to know them more on a personal basis. And at that point, I can say, just call me Martin. I'm not offended by that or anything. But I think it'd be good to establish sort of a protocol. This is how we refer to people in a professional setting. If you get to know or are comfortable with or get permission, then in private or whatnot, you can use more colloquial language if they're okay with that. But yeah, all of these things we're shaping them, right? They're not coming out of professional school. They're just starting professional school. So these are great conversations to have with the students on your project and in the classroom, just about we're polishing them. I mean, most of these students haven't talked to someone face to face in 2 years, so it's insane the difference after 2 years. Even myself, it's like coming out of a cave. Like the first time I talked in front of a class, it was like I'd never done it before, and I've been doing it for 18 years. It was such a wild experience.
So Martin, are a lot of the projects with students interacting with patients, or are they all different?
They're all different.
Is it a different protocol for the students, depending on whether it's a patient interacting project versus not?
It will be determined by the REB clearance for the project. That being said, I'm asking all the students to go through all the steps to be available for all of the projects. So they will be getting trained as if they're working with patients, even if they don't end up on a project with patients. Some of them are purely like chart reviews or data collection, data analysis projects. But we want to make sure they have clearance for any level that in case they are on a project like that. That's exciting. I'm excited to see it come together.
For sure.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's all I have. The next thing would be the mixer, and then setting up a date and time where we can have a regular once-a-month meeting, getting the projects aligned, the students aligned with your projects.
Do you have a list of just the students' names and where they did their undergraduate from in the meantime?
Yes. Yeah, I can send that along with their CVs. So I have an Excel file, has their name, their email address, where they did the undergrad, what degree they have, and their citizenship status and everything like that. So the way it's worked out this year is all 23 of our students did their undergraduate in either biology, biochemistry, biomedical science in Ontario. So we have quite a few students from Windsor. We have some students from York, some from Guelph, some from Waterloo, some from Queen's University. We have 5 students that are permanent residents, but again, they did their undergrad in Ontario. Some of them are working towards Canadian citizenship right now. Their families moved here, but they all have Canadian citizenship or permanent residence, and their English very good. So next year we might have some international students, but this year we don't have any international students.
And no Torontonians, huh?
No, York's the closest. Toronto actually has a similar program. It's a 2-year program. But we did have some applicants from Toronto. We just didn't accept them.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a good bunch of students. You'll like them. Yeah, York. Well, we have 2 students that are HK actually, but they had minors in like human physiology or something like that. So we thought they could be successful. So.
That's amazing. It looks like you're having a lot of fun with this.
I am. I'm terrified, but I'm having a lot of fun. I'm just waiting for the ball to drop. Like what could potentially happen, you know? But I think it's gonna. Everyone's come together. Everyone's positive about it, and everyone's putting forth a good effort. So I'm really excited about the collaborations.
And Martin, are we allowed to apply for industry sponsorship or industry grant?
Yeah, no reason not to. Yeah, and again, if you're writing a grant or you say, okay, I have a quiet week with collecting data or something like that, and you have that student 6 hours, you might say, hey, can you look into the details of this grant and what's involved and who qualifies, and perhaps they could start even helping put information together.
Oh, I didn't even think of it that way. I thought the grant would have to be done before the selection of the student, but I didn't even think of it the other way around.
Yeah, so my perspective on this, and just this might help too a little bit, is my relationship with the clinicians. I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking year after year after year after year, because we want to offer the program every year. The students are going to come and go. We got a new group of students started in May. This time next year, they're already graduated onto tomorrow. So only with us for a year. So I'm thinking long term with you. So if you apply for a grant now or over the course of the next year, you might not even find out if you're successful or not until this time next year, and the student's already graduated. But you might, because it's successful, take on another student of ours, a different student. Oh, someone joined us here. Sorry, we just finished the meeting, but I'm not sure if I can answer any questions.
No, this is good enough, Martin. I just wanted a quick idea of what this is about, because
Okay.
I'm in the university myself. I'm in the business program.
Right, that's right.
And we have a bunch of programs with the doctors, and I have a system we have made for medical. So
Okay.
that's how I got into it, because one of my partners actually, a couple of my partners have applied.
Right.
And they put me as a PI or co-PI.
Awesome. So I did record this session, and I will send the link to you if you want to go back and watch. I did have a presentation where I just went through some details, but you probably have a pretty good sense of it.
No, I got an idea. I myself am involved in a graduate program managing it, and we have an experiential learning component. So
awesome.
Good to see you anyways.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to join at least and get to see your face and meet you. We are trying to plan a social event for the end of the month, so
we might see each other on the graduate council also probably. So because
yes,
I'm also managing a graduate program at Odette. So
awesome, that's fantastic. And I'll have to pick your brain sometime about some of the professional development training that's available over there, because I'm teaching professional development for the next year, and it's beyond my ken. So.
No, anytime. I've been helping out with other programs also, like computer science has this MSc program. So some of my students are helping them out.
Okay.
Same way Epicenter has a few programs on design thinking and communication skills. So we have been doing those kind of things. Not a problem, anytime.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Well, Sahar or Pradeepa, if you have any more questions, I hope I answered them all. But you can always reach out to me anytime by email. Or again, I have that bookings page if you want to book a private appointment with me via Teams, and I'll share that. I'll put that up on the screen again, just in case you didn't get to access it. But otherwise, that's all.
Now I make a really, really, really sort of slightly paranoid question, which is when I submitted my project, I actually didn't hear back anything until now when you said that we were, invited to this meeting. So I just want to make sure that my project actually did get selected, and this is not, and when you ran very quickly through the list of projects, I didn't see mine on it.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering whether it's definitely there.
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have been contacted. That's very strange to me.
That's the thing, because I actually think that I didn't get anything before the invite to these meetings. So when I got the invite, I was really happy, but the project was very prelim and I didn't get any communication prior to this.
This is the project, the validating novel measures. Is this the project?
This is in the post-transplant setting, right? The frailty. Yeah.
So this is the autologous stem cell transplant one, and then we have.
That's the one.
Okay, yeah, it's in the. So I'm wondering if my email address for you is correct, because I reply immediately to all the emails that come in. Usually, well, that's not good. Okay, so let me make sure. Is this the correct email address for you?
That was the correct email address for me, and I just honestly don't even know, because I know that there's a couple of times, once or twice, when people have sworn that they've sent me emails, even on my hospital account, and there's been an issue once or twice, so it may have gotten missed. Maybe I need to look into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to make sure. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Sahar. Yeah, because I noticed Dr. McKay's wrh.on.ca email doesn't work either when I send him emails. So he gave me a Gmail account, but I don't know if there's an extra space in here or an error typo, but let's correct that. I'll send you an email right after this just to make sure you actually receive it. So sorry about that. That's terrible. Okay. All right. Very good.
Yeah. Martin, at some point of time, we can talk further because there may be some synergies between our students and yours. Like I've had about 8 medical students who were working with us on the project. And again, some synergies are there and some difficulties are there, same too, because sometimes the students don't respond to the work they are given. Like we have that challenge. But again, there are some ways to work with them. So we can probably share those best practices as well.
Awesome.
And anything else you need from my side, you have my coordinates. In looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll put this again on the screen. This is just on my bookings page. So if you scan that with your phone, anytime you want to book an appointment with me, I have a calendar there. You can pick any date and time, and it will automatically notify me, and it will populate my calendar, and it will set up a Teams meeting for us. But yeah, that'd be very helpful. One thing I did talk about before you joined was I'd like to set up a once a month meeting for all the clinicians to meet with me on Teams, even if just for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, just in case there's any feedback or there's any issues with a student, we can deal with it immediately so we don't get anyone slipping through the cracks or not doing their job. But I think we have a really good bunch of students, and but just in case, it would still be helpful to have those meetings. Your input would be very helpful.
The students you're getting are those who are aspiring to be doctors still, or like it's like they have got their MCATs and they somehow didn't get into the program. Who are you getting as most of your students? This is a master's program, right?
So all of our students have a Bachelor of Science degree. They all have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology or biochemistry or biomedical science. There's 2 exceptions. We have 2 students that have human kinetic degrees. With minors in physiology or cell biology, something like that. 16 of our students are from the University of Windsor. We have some students from York, some from Guelph, some from Waterloo, some from Western.
Nice.
But many of them are applying to med school. Some of them have just finished writing their MCATs or plan to write their MCATs shortly. Not all of them are planning to be medical doctors, but they do want to perhaps work in healthcare in one way or another, whether a clinical trials manager or some administrative position in a hospital or government or industry. But a lot of them are looking to go into healthcare at some level. That's who they are.
No, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. All right. I'll stay on the line. If you want to leave, feel free to leave. I'll stay on the line. Don't have any more questions. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin.
No problem. Thanks, Sahar. Thanks, Deepa. Good to see you.
Thank you. That was super helpful, and it's really fun to talk about these interesting concepts. Really, I'm really excited.
Yeah, you know, I've mentioned your project a couple of times actually to my students. It's just an example of one for one. It's not necessarily part of right at a Windsor Regional, but hospital, but also just, you know, there's some of these projects have more of a clinical side. Some of them more have a social work type of side to them, and I think whoever gets on any of these projects is going to have a great experience.
Okay. So, did you get some decent feedback?
Yeah, well, that was live in class, so I just in their eyes I got feedback, but I've given them. And if
they're wearing masks, that's all you're seeing. The eyes.
Yeah, so I've given them a few weeks to give me their feedback on preference, but everyone will get a student. So.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you again for all your time.
Hey, no problem.
It's evident all your effort.
We're working on it. We're trying.
Have a great weekend. See you in person next time.
Yeah, see you now.
Bye.